Mornings with Anne-Marie Middlemast on ABC Victoria.
For as long as wind farms have existed in Victoria, it seems that they've been surrounded by complaints from nearby residents that noise from the turbines causes headaches and general feelings of illness. Today, wind farm company Pacific Hydro, based at Cape Bridgewater in the state's southwest, has released a landmark study of the experiences of residents living near the wind farm. The scientist who has led the study is acoustical engineer Stephen Cooper, who conducted the survey for Pacific Hydro and is with us this morning. Nice to talk to you, Stephen.
Fine.
Have the results of your study supported or disproven the effect of the wind farm on the health of residents?
The study only identifies noise and vibration. It's not a health study, but it is identified there are components attributed to the wind farm that relate to complaints or observations of the residents.
Okay, can you walk us through then what was tested for the study?
Primarily, we conducted noise measurements across the entire audible spectrum and a section of the spectrum called infrasound, which is below the lowest frequencies that we normally associated with hearing. This involves special microphones, amplifiers and protection equipment, and this was conducted at 3 houses for a period of 8 weeks, of which one house had an extensive array of microphones and vibration detectors both inside and outside the house. So during that period, we measured operation of the wind farm under different weather conditions, wind directions, wind speed, and also at times when the wind turbines were off, when there was no wind, they're unable to operate.
So you were testing 3 houses in which there were 6 residents, and during your testing, Stephen, the residents of those homes kept a diary to record noise and vibration and sensation, which is a new category for a survey, allowing them to document any other feelings that they were receiving at the time of the wind farms being in operation. What did you find, or what correlations did you find with the noise and vibration and their documentation in their diaries?
When we started putting the diary information together with the wind farm operation and the noise information, we found there were certain conditions of the operation of the wind farm that correlated or agreed with the observations where they recorded high sensation levels.
So, in layman's terms, there were times when the wind farm was running a particular operation and residents were at the same time sensing something.
That's correct.
How is this survey different from other studies that would be similar, that would monitor disturbances and wind farms?
Firstly, there has never been sensation included in questionnaires. The descriptor of noise doesn't actually explain what the residents are feeling. And when we sat down and talked to the residents to get an understanding of their observations, it was only when we came up with sensation as something that you feel, whether it's a pressure in your head, your eyes, your throat, your chest, headache, pulsing of the ears, that descriptor, which covers a gambit of things, when applied to sensation, actually fitted in with their complaints. What we found was that previously they were complaining about the noise, but it wasn't really the noise. It was sensation. So that was the first major finding in conducting this survey. Secondly, we had full access to the residents' houses, both outside and inside, for 8 weeks. And to conduct the diaries, and we actually were a little bit longer because we had a trial run to see what was happening. Thirdly, and this is very important, we had unlimited access to anywhere on the wind farm, which is something that doesn't normally occur when you're doing surveys for the community at their houses. And fourthly, we were given all the turbine data for the entire duration of the period in 10-minute samples to know what the wind speed, the power output that was occurring, wind direction, and for some special tests that we conducted around turbines, we were given 1-minute data. And this information opens up a whole new area of investigation.
So
And fifthly, we had, during the course of this survey, we had complete and absolute shutdowns where the power would be killed completely to the wind farm, and we knew 100% guarantee that there was nothing operating on the wind farm because there was no power going to it.
And did residents record a lack of sensation or a lack of disturbance when the power was essentially shut down?
Yes and no. In general, yes. But for some of the residents, they actually did record vibration and they did record some sensations. And this correlated with the stationary turbines, but high wind speeds which were causing the turbines to shake. And so if you imagine you've got a blade which is 50 metres long, and let's say it's 2 tonnes up in the air, this blade will flex, and in turn it can induce vibration into the structure and into the ground. And so we went off to do some measurements in houses of vibration and around some turbines, and we were able to find some pulses that were occurring even though the turbines were stationary. And these pulses also occur when the turbines are operating. And this was the incredible value of being able to go onto the wind farm and pick any turbine we liked. There were no restrictions at all, and go and do these measurements. We would have liked to have done a lot more, but it became a massive project, as you've seen by the size of the report.
Stephen, it seems that this study has certainly supported the idea that humans can detect vibrations from wind farms on some level, be it sensory or otherwise. Would you agree with that?
Yes, they can, and we have similar standards that people have for whole body vibration. And those standards show that there are different sensations at different frequencies or different sensitivity levels. And this sort of fits in with that data, and they don't necessarily hear it, but there is something that's occurring, and this has happened at other wind farms, and which is what caused me to have in the back of my mind the concept of sensation or feeling.
Pacific Hydro are quoted in the release saying that what the report means for them is that it helps them understand the effect of wind farm infrasound on people, saying it's largely unclear. Is it largely unclear to you the effect of wind farms on people? I mean, you're the scientist who led the study.
Yes, it is correct, because there has not been the link to show in a scientific term what the wind farm is doing. The general dBA level that's used for community noise doesn't work with wind farms. So if you didn't have the link to provide a relationship between the wind farm and the community, you actually can't do the medical studies. What is really exciting from this work is that we found a pattern in a special signature that exists when the turbines are operating and does not exist when the turbines are off. And it's very clear, and it's in the infrasound region, and it's actually being found elsewhere in the world, but the on-off testing with the shutdown and all the data from the turbines highlights this point. Now you can use, in my opinion, you can use that signature to commence the medical studies. So Pacific Hydro are correct that we don't have a correlation in terms of medical, and I agree with that 100%. But we actually have uncovered a tool which can now lead the next step to be done, because you couldn't do the medical studies without the acoustic information saying what was going on.
So in your opinion, is the next step for Pacific Hydro a medical study?
Well, it wouldn't be Pacific Hydro. I think they will say that they've spent enough money, and I think they've come up with a whole pile of things and out of the study, and it's a very comprehensive report that goes from woe to go to show we tried all sorts of different things that people used. The medical studies should fall under the appropriate government authorities, because there was supposed to be a medical study done a number of years ago from a Senate inquiry. And really, they didn't know where to go. Now they have a starting point.
So irrespective of who funds it, you think the next step in trying to track the correlation between what people who live near wind farms say are causing them disturbances is a medical study?
Oh, yes. Adelaide University have found some similar results to mine, but they didn't have it directly on-off. So the criticism could be is that, well, if it's a week apart when the turbines are off, that doesn't categorically prove that it's the turbines. The important thing is the measurements done half an hour before the entire wind farm shut down and half an hour or 40 minutes or an hour after it shut down at the very same place is clearly the points. Then later in the day when they start up, and this is repeated 10 times, or 10 days of data, and it shows it clearly that's there. So that overcomes that issue. We also found an interesting frequency, which we don't have an answer from the turbine, but I believe that it's associated with when the generator is producing power. And it's been a frequency signal that people all around the world have been unaware of what it was related to, because it's not a mathematical function of the speed of the blades. And so there's an entire chapter in the report that deals with measurements around one turbine that show the power going in and out. And this is another signal that's there when the turbines are on and is not there when the turbines are off.
Stephen, can I ask, is there anything else that you think is important for us to know from this study?
It's a complex issue. It's very involved in looking at it. You have to spend a lot of time, and you have to understand that, I guess as a noise engineer of 35 plus years of experience, I give my age away, if there are lots of complaints, then you have to go and look for something. And this has been the philosophy behind trying to see what's going on. So there is a matter of listening to people and being a very good listener, and lots of time was spent with the residents. I observed they had balance problems outside of my expertise, but there's a little exercise that I gave them, and it's presented in the report in the comments from the residents. And some of these residents do not want to repeat that balance exercise because they were sick for days. There's people around the world are trying to grapple or get a handle on what's going on. And you need more than just one person to do it. You need a melding of minds, and this is a possibility. It is a step moving forward in trying to understand the problem.
So, Stephen, just to conclude for our audience this morning, because it is, as you've said, a very complex issue, in your opinion, as the scientist who led the noise monitoring study, there is a correlation between wind turbine activity and people detecting a disturbance?
I don't have enough data to say a correlation. The study is limited, it's a pilot study, and there is a trend line that's very clear, and I can say that. Correlation needs a lot more scientific rigour with a larger population to come up with the answer.
Could members of the public or those residents who have complained about that noise interpret trend line as correlation?
They can, but in a pure scientific mechanism, I can't say that there's a correlation at this point in time.
Okay. Thanks very much for being with us this morning, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
Stephen Cooper, acoustical engineer who conducted the survey for Pacific Hydro.